Welcome back to the channel, everybody. And today it is my number 24 team in my 2023 NFL Deep Dive series. It's the Atlanta Falcons. Make sure to like and comment your thoughts in the comment section below. Both of those things really help out with the algorithms. And subscribe if you haven't already. That would be fantastic so you don't miss any of these videos. And apparently I'm a little controversial because, just go check out that Panthers video. Panthers fans are upset with me, and I think that there's going to be some Falcons fans that will be upset with me a little bit here too, just because of some of the rankings that I've given particular players, the coaching staff, and whatnot. Now, I think that Atlanta, of all the teams so far, really does have the best chance of getting into that top 20 and into the playoffs. I think that they have a lot of potential. I think that there's certain things about them that are potentially going to hold them back, and we'll get to all those things. We'll get to those player positions in particular. The question marks that they have are in key situations, and particularly how they run their team in general. You know, the run first style offense that they have. How much impact could that have in the modern day NFL? Is that conducive of a team that can become a true contender? Because the only a team that's truly leaned on the run game as much as Atlanta does is Arthur Smith's other team, the Tennessee Titans. And yeah, they were capable of having really good regular seasons, but then once they got to the playoffs, they were not able to really take that next step. And I think that Atlanta, unfortunately, because of the way Arthur Smith runs an offense, because of just the style that he's going with and that he has gone with, I'm not sure that he's somebody who, in the position of ultimate power, can elevate this team to the next level, especially if they don't have the proper quarterback play, if they don't have the proper pass blocking ability. I think that they've started to sort of move in that direction a bit, which is why I think that there's a lot of potential there, but it's all going to depend on what that play calling is going to look like. And then, they've acquired some guys on the defensive side of the ball. I think that they could have done a little bit better. I do like the trade for Jeff Okudah. I do like the signing of Jesse Bates, who is like one of my top 2 or 3 safeties in the league overall. It's going to be interesting to see how he reacts in the passing game and how him and Richie Grant sort of mold together. I think with Richie Grant, it gives them a little bit more flexibility of what they're doing with those two in the back. So it'll be fun to watch those guys play together. AJ Terrell's looking to bounce back a bit. He had a great year, and he had a down year, I guess you can call it. But when you're as great as he's been, a down year is as good as some guys' up years. They drafted Bijan Robinson in the first round, which, making him a top 10 pick, he was a top 5 player. And I think that this situation that he's going into justifies that because of the style of offense that they run. How he mixes in with Tyler Algier, who had a fantastic rookie season. Just unfortunately, he was playing in Atlanta and there wasn't a lot of hype around them. But if Tyler Algier was on any other team, if he was on a team that was a playoff team, I think people would be talking much more highly of him. You'll see how highly I think of him. I do think that in terms of the ability to turn around and hand the ball off, though they're different stylistically, I think that you won't be losing a whole lot with Algier and Bijan. I think where Bijan's skills really come into play is in the passing game that Algier just doesn't really have, and I think that's going to make them very good complements for one another. And the offensive line, they have them trying to build that offensive line. Bringing back Caleb McGarry was a good move. So there's just a lot of potential here, like I said. And but we'll start with probably the thing that's going to make you fans, like I said, a little upset. And that is the coaching staff rankings, and let's get to that. So this coaching staff is ranked 25th for me, and I know. Now, I wouldn't be opposed to ranking this coaching staff in the top 20. If, like I said during the intro, if we see some type of evolution from Arthur Smith into something that is more of a modernized strategy, modernized scheme that empowers the quarterback to be what we see in Kansas City, in Cincinnati. His strong ability in the run game, though, can actually help with that. It's just getting the quarterback in place and developing that quarterback. So, I get it. This seems low for them. If you want to rank them in the top 20, if you want to rank them like 20th to 18th, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to that either. So I just want that to be clear. I'm just looking at how this team has continued to build. And when they drafted Bijan Robinson, even though I love the pick, I love Bijan, he's going to be a great player. That made me think that there might not be as much of an evolution as perhaps was what they need. They have Dave Ragone. Ragone? He's been the offensive coordinator since Arthur Smith came over. He was the one that really revitalized Cordell Patterson's career. It's really established him as a running back. Did a great job with Tyler Algier, but kind of again like Arthur Smith, he's got that run mindset. Now, how much of that is Arthur Smith's influence? I'm sure a lot of it is, because at the end of the day, it is Arthur Smith's system, and Ragona's kind of just running it. I don't know how much exactly he has in terms of power. I'm sure he has a voice because he is the offensive coordinator, but at the end of the day, Arthur Smith is going to Arthur Smith. So it'll be very interesting to see how they execute this offense, knowing that if they don't become more of a effective downfield passing team, that they will not reach the heights that they need to reach in order to make the playoffs, in order to win the division. Now, because this division, only one team's going to make the playoffs, barring some like miraculous overachieving. The team that wins this division's getting in, and no one else is. So, because with the NFC West, with Seattle and San Francisco, then the NFC East with the Eagles, the Cowboys, and the Giants, there's a lot going on. What they do on the defensive side of the ball is with Ryan Nielsen. He spent 2 seasons at Northern Illinois. He was the defensive lines coach there. He was at NC State. He was with the Saints, I believe, last year. Was it last year? Oh, no. No, he was with the Saints 2 years ago. Anyway, you read up on all these guys. It's easy to get, a couple years to sort of blend into one. Those COVID years, those were pretty brutal. But I would say that Nielsen was brought in for a specific reason, and that is because of how well the defensive line with the New Orleans Saints has done over the last 5 to 7 years. With Cameron Jordan, and then they drafted Marcus Davenport, who never really became anything, but I don't know if that's necessarily a coaching issue as much as it is a health issue. But he's got his work cut out for him in terms of establishing a pass rush for this defense that hasn't existed. They don't really have a number one pass rusher. They're going to have to use, the rookies that they've drafted the last 2 years. Hopefully they can figure out an interior pass rush. They brought in Onyemata, who Nielsen is familiar with from his time in New Orleans. They did improve the secondary. There's still a lot of question marks around Jeff Okudah, but if Nielsen can get this pass rush going, if he can get this front seven going, then that is going to help Jeff Okudah become closer to what he was drafted as, which is the number 3 overall pick in the draft by the Detroit Lions, when they could have taken Justin Herbert, Andrew Thomas, Tristan Wirfs, like so many other options were available. They took Jeff Okudah because of what he should have become by now. So this is Nielsen's chance to do that, but he needs to put a pass rush out there, because to have any corner with no pass rush help, eventually guys are going to start running open. I think that's a big issue that Atlanta's had, especially last year they had it, which was a big reason why I think AJ Terrell took sort of a step back in terms of his production. Even though he's still very good, he did take a step back, and I think that has a lot to do with it. Just not having the help anywhere else on the field. Grady Jarrett's going to have to step up his game, get back to where he was when he was one of the best interior defensive linemen in the league. And Nielsen's going to have to put together a scheme, put together a rotation that's going to make it viable for these guys to really excel. And I think that's a strong task he has ahead of himself. When you have an offensive head coach like most teams have, the defensive coordinator does get a lot of freedom, gets a lot of autonomy. So it'll be interesting to see how Nielsen continues to use that. And I think that what we could see from Nielsen this year is he could potentially, depending on how well this defense plays, he could play himself into being a head coaching candidate as well. I think that's true for a lot of these defensive coordinators on some of these lower end teams, because the talent level isn't really that high. But if you can get a lot out of them, that's gonna perk the ears up of a lot of general managers across the league who might be looking to go to more of a defensive mindset, the way that we saw Houston do, the way that we saw Arizona do it. So I think that there's potential there. I still think that this Atlanta team is maybe a year or two away. And I think if this coaching staff can evolve, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, then they can get into that top 20, maybe even top 15 for me. And then we could really see this team get back up to what they were when Matt Ryan was in his prime and they were like a perennial playoff team with guys like Tony Gonzalez and Julio Jones and whatnot. But this really seems to be where the question mark is truly on this offense. They committed to Desmond Ridder. Last year they tried to trade for Deshaun Watson. Didn't work out. So they drafted Desmond Ridder in the 3rd round. And they played with him and Marcus Mariota last year. And they didn't get real quality play out of either one. Ridder had flashes, but I don't think he convinced anyone with his personal skill level. I think that a lot of Atlanta's success came from just solid play of the people around him. And even then, they were still, the 7th or 8th worst team in the league. So it's still not good. But his development is going to be the real difference maker in whether this team finishes exactly where I have them, or if they finish higher and are a playoff team because they figured out a way to win the division. He gets a 64, which is slightly less than Sam Howell. And the only reason I gave it slightly less than Sam Howell is because Ritter's already played. Sam Howell is sort of just sitting on being able to sit out a year. He's got Eric Bieniemy coming in, who probably is a better offensive coordinator, even though I think he's extremely overrated, than what they have here. And they're also more inclined to the passing game and all that kind of stuff. So I think that Ritter's got his work cut out for him. They got Taylor Heineke, who, again, kind of overrated, became, he's a prize of social media, because on social media he became like a star, a meme, that people think that Taylor Heineke's like really good. He's not. He's the 2nd best quarterback on the team, but if you're putting him in, don't hold your breath all that much. At least I wouldn't, because, whatever. I don't hate Desmond Ridder as a prospect. I just think that in this offense, he's got his work cut out for him in terms of development. I know this offense turned Ryan Tannehill into a guy who gets $30 million a year. I'm not so sure, however, that Desmond Ridder's upside is the same as Ryan Tannehill's. You got to remember Ryan Tannehill's a first-round pick. You got to remember that Ryan Tannehill, even in Miami, had some good performances. It just had some down years towards the end. A down year or two towards the end. Desmond Ridder, in a very weak quarterback class, fell to the third round. Wasn't the first quarterback taken. So there's a lot of question marks there. How high is his ceiling really? How much can he develop? Is he somebody that maybe is just a quarterback for now because you liked him better than you liked Will Levis? I think that's a possibility too. Because there was no position for them to really trade up to get Anthony Richardson or CJ Stroud, because, Houston sort of had their plan laid out that took away that third overall pick possibility for Atlanta to trade up for. So this team is going to live and die based upon how this coaching staff evolves and how well Desmond Ridder develops. Because as we move forward now, you're going to see they got some talent, man. They really do. It's just, how well is this talent going to get used? So let's look at their backfield with their rushing threats. Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson, I give them the exact same grade of an 87. Different skill sets, but I think at the end of the day, they're going to give you like the same overall talent level, just in different ways. I think that they complement each other so incredibly well. I think there could be situations, even Cordero Patterson, who I give a 72, I think there's situations where all three of these guys are going to be on the field at the same time. I don't really see why not. I don't really see why we can't have a situation where there's going to be, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Cordero Patterson, Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier all on the field at the same time. Lots of motion, lots of misdirection, because there is a lot of talent here. And you can get the ball to Bijan. You can line him up in the slot. You can run him on some jet sweeps if you have to. Cordero Patterson, sort of the same thing. You can turn around, just hand the ball off to Cordero Patterson, let him run between the tackles the same way you can Tyler Algier. I think you're going to get a lot better out of Algier. I think that Cordero Patterson sort of, after that first year, sort of coming back down to earth a bit, which is why they drafted Algier to begin with, why they drafted Bijan now. But then even when you get into the receiving game, this is where Cordero Patterson's skill set really comes into play. One of the better receiving backs. He is a converted wide receiver. Even Bijan, though, Bijan's not all that different for me in the passing game than Cordero Patterson. Maybe coming into the NFL, that's why he's a little bit less, because you expect guys to sort of take a bit of a step back because you are playing against better talent. The schemes are you're learning a new scheme, you're sort of learning new techniques. But I think that Bijan, by the end of the year, could possibly take all of Cordero Patterson's snaps away. And I think that's why at the end of the year, I do expect Bijan to sort of have the most touches out of everyone in the backfield. Just because of, not only where he was drafted, but in terms of skill set. I expect Algier to maybe have more carries by a little bit, perhaps. But I do expect Bijan to overtake the total touches, and he is the best option in terms of like fantasy and stuff. But I think early on in the year, as you get Bijan up to speed. And I think that's another reason why they probably might come out of the gate a little bit slower, because you're trying to get a guy like Bijan comfortable. So he'll probably get like 12 touches in a game in the first couple weeks until you get him up to that 20. Right? And then Algier is going to sort of maybe carry the load. You want to wear down defenses. Cordero Patterson will come in and sort of run a lot of these plays with a lot of the motion and stuff. And then Bijan will then eventually come in and take some of those snaps away as well. I don't expect much of Avery Williams or Caleb Huntley. Huntley will probably be the one that doesn't make the team, just because everyone else does have just more versatility than he does in all aspects of the game. And I think that, Cordero Patterson's safe, obviously, because you can split him out at receiver. And then you keep your two-headed monster in the backfield. Avery Williams sort of sits as a backup in the event that you lose one of your top two guys. Now we're looking at the receivers. And because of this offense, this is one of the few teams that you'll see that I'll have two receivers, two tight ends. because there's going to be a lot of 2 tight end sets. The way that they use Kyle Pitts is going to be a little bit different, but Drake London is the team's number 1 receiver. He has the real potential here to develop and take that next step forward. They do expect it. It's going to be really up to what we see in the play calling. And again, Desmond Ridder, as to what that reflects statistically. I think the same could be said for Kyle Pitts. Cardero Hodges is there. He's the number 2 receiver. This is where I think there's a real issue. Who's the number 2 receiver on this team? I think that's why you get a bunch of these guys in the backfield that have the ability to come out of the backfield in the passing game. Why you go and get a guy like Jonnu Smith, who had his best years under Arthur Smith in Tennessee, is to sort of make up for that. I haven't heard anything about them trying to get DeAndre Hopkins. I don't know why not. I think DeAndre Hopkins would be a perfect guy to bring into this team. You know, you got all these guys who are like these Kyle Pitts, Drake London, bigger body guys. DeAndre Hopkins, sort of the same thing. You sort of play bully ball out there, and it really helps Desmond Ridder because it helps him where he might struggle with accuracy a bit. It will matter a lot less if he's out there throwing to guys London, Hopkins, Pitts, Jonnu Smith. Even Cordell Patterson's a bigger player as well. You create an environment where he can play with a little bit more confidence, a little bit looser, because you got these long, rangy guys, but there's just no connection. And I don't know why. I think that this team has a lot more potential to be really good this year and to maybe surprise some teams than a team like the Patriots or the Titans, who seem to be the ones in the front runners for Hopkins. So it's very confusing to me, but I think Hodges overall, I think he could surprise a lot of people because I think his skill set's really good. It's just a matter of how much production you're going to get out of him. But if they can figure out a way to use him, I think he can be very effective in this offense. Even when you look at the depth, this is where they struggle. They don't really have depth here. Keith Smith is sort of like a fullback / tight end. Scotty Miller, coming from Tampa Bay, just really hasn't been anything since he had those moments with Brady in 2020. Frank Darby hasn't really become who the diamond in the rough that people like me and other people in the draft community expected him to be. Mac Hollins is whatever, not all that much better. This is where the struggles are really going to be for this receiving group, is in the depth. You know, if they can't afford to lose a guy like Drake London. If they lose a guy like Drake London, then they're in a lot of trouble. And I think that this ultimately is another reason why you grade a guy like Desmond Ridder a little bit lower, because the potential of this receiving core is not there. You know, outside of the 4 guys that I put up, where's the production coming from? I just don't think it exists. And that's a big thing that I think bumps this team to, are they going to be that passing team that they need to be in order to take that next step? Or are they still a year away from that? Are they still, maybe next year they're looking to go all in on one of the rookie quarterbacks, whether it be Williams or Drake May, or maybe somebody steps up big like Shedeur Sanders in Colorado. That's possible as well. Bo Nix in Oregon. Or do they invest highly in wide receiver and then try to get a veteran quarterback in the trade market next year? Like, which veteran quarterback is going to pop up as a potential option for them? I think that could be a possibility as well. I just think that what makes teams true contenders and top half of the league teams, they don't have the players or the depth in order to pull that off right now. They do quietly have one of the better offensive lines in the NFL. They've done a really good job of putting guys in place here. And I think that we'll start with the left guard, Matthew Bergeron. I think they finally sort of found that last piece of the puzzle that they thought was Jalen Mayfield. Drew Dahlman at center. I like Matt Hennessy at center, but they have him projected to be the 3rd guard on the team, which is odd because I think Matt Hennessy is the best option at center. I think that could change, but Dahlman was the guy getting all these center reps. Hennessy was playing guard. I think that once we get into training camp and stuff, we're going to see Hennessy compete at that center position, and he should win it, I would think, unless Dahlman takes some type of giant step forward and they want Hennessy to sort of be the swing interior guy. Maybe he beats out Bergeron for the starting guard and Bergeron becomes like the third tackle on the team. I think that's a possibility as well. But, they still have Chris Lindstrom, who's one of the best, if not the best guard in football. Caleb McGarry, not great in pass blocking, has to improve on that, but is an elite level run blocker, really broke out last year, got paid for it. Jake Matthews, solid left tackle, one of the better left tackles in the league that you can really count on him. Again, solid guy. You go to the depth, and this is where I'm talking about Matt Hennessy. Even in the passing game, I think he's the best option. I think he's better than Drew Dahlman in pass blocking. I think he's better than Drew Dahlman in run blocking. So I think that the competition between him, Dahlman, and Bergeron is going to be an interesting thing to see during mini camps and training camp throughout the summer. Jalen Mayfield has never really worked out. He is somebody who he's the second best depth guy, so he's going to make the team. But the depth on this offensive line, again, not something that's that great. They do have enough versatile pieces where for a week or two here or there throughout the year, they could sub somebody in. Like Matt Hennessy can get on the field. They can move Bergeron to tackle. They can move Hennessy to guard, something like that. And now we're looking at the run blocking, and this is where I think that Bergeron is in trouble of not being a starter in his first year. You start looking at the right side of the line. It's the best it's the best side of an offensive line in whether it be pass blocking or run blocking in the entire league. You're not going to find a better 1-2 punch in run blocking or a 1-2 punch in pass blocking, for example, than you're getting out of McGarry and Lindstrom, who were just amazing last year, and this is only going to help this team, who is really driven by the run until further notice, press forward and be effective. Jake Matthews, of course, he's run blocking is not really his thing, but he's more of a traditional true left tackle anyway. Dahlman steps up in the run game. Solid. As a center, he's very passable. This is where Bergeron is at risk, though, like I said before. I do think that he is, he's slightly better, you can see there in the passing game, than Matt Hennessy. But when we get to the depth in the run blocking, Matt Hennessy isn't a fantastic run blocker. So him getting on the field, I think year one, at least at the left guard position, is sort of where this is going to go. And I think that Bergeron, if they continue to lean on the run, this is where Bergeron finds his way to the bench. I could see them sort of making Dahlman be the guy go to the bench. I think that that's a possibility as well. But I think that Matt Hennessy, in terms of being a run blocker, is so high level. It's going to be very difficult for their depth chart to hold up as it stands right now with Dahlman at center, Bergeron at guard. With that said, if Bergeron outperforms that run blocking grade to any type of significant level, if he gets up to sort of where he is in terms of projected as a pass blocker, I could see them letting Hennessy and Dahlman sort of have their competition. And I think that Hennessy eventually should take over. But again, these are just my grades. There's just people out there that clearly like Dahlman better than Hennessy. I would be inclined to say that they're wrong. But as it stands, yeah. I do like the depth. I think this is where Newsel has potential to make the team as well, as an interior offensive lineman. And Mayfield is really at risk. This is where the risk of keeping Jalen Mayfield on the team. This is the risky part. Do you keep him, or do you cut him and keep Hennessy, Newsel, Josh Miles, and then maybe a ninth offensive lineman? I think that's going to be the real battle that this team's going to have because I think that Hennessy's really the only one locked in as that sixth offensive lineman. And then, you have Bergeron, who can be a swing guy if you need him to be in his rookie year. I'm just going over the positional summaries, and like I said, in the passing game, they got some skill. Not a lot of depth at receiver, tight end, or on the offensive line in terms of pass blocking. But that's not where this team runs. This team runs through the running game, and they got great running backs, if not the best total backfield in the entire league. Tremendous run blocking. Their receivers contribute really well in run blocking as well. Even depth-wise, they do. Tight ends, not really. We're going to have to see Jonnu and Kyle Pitts step up that part of their game. But I think that because they have so much skill, like I said during the running back segment, they can do a lot of the smoke and mirrors, misdirection stuff to really open the game up for their running backs and not necessarily worry about having that, quote, sixth offensive lineman in the form of a tight end on the field. So overall, they have the 23rd ranked offense in the league for me, 17th rush offense, and the 24th pass offense, which really is what drags them down. I think if they can get some improvements in some certain areas, then this becomes a top 20 offense in the league. It's just, and it's close. I think you guys need to realize how close this is. Like a couple of improvements here or there can be the difference between a team being ranked the 23rd offense and like the 19th or 18th offense. So you guys got to keep that in mind with the way this grading system sort of work. You can go back and look at the other videos and see what the overall grades are. And there's not a whole lot of difference. It could be like 0.5, it could be like 72.2 and 73.2 could be the difference in like 4 or 5 spots, depending on how other teams are sort of shaped and how they're graded out. So I wouldn't be alarmed by this because they do have the potential to get into the top 20, maybe as close as like 15th. But a couple things have to really happen. But if they get great quarterback play at Desmond Ridder, and Desmond Ridder plays like a top 20 quarterback in the NFL, top 15 quarterback in the NFL, this could easily be a top 15 offense, and then this is a playoff team. So there is something there. There is something here with this team that's just simply being dragged down by, in my opinion, the depth in the wide receiver room and the question marks surrounding the quarterback. Everything else is seemingly put in place. So there's a lot of optimism, justified optimism for me, for this Atlanta Falcons offense. Now we're going to move on to the defensive side of the ball. And this is where there's cause for concern and alarm. I grade rookie Zach Harrison as a pass rusher 75. I love him as a pass rusher. I thought he was a great pick for this team. He immediately comes in, and to me, he's number one. Who's opposite of him? Arnold Ebiketie going into his second year. You have veteran Bud Dupree. You have Adeto. When we get to the depth, you'll see his last name. Long, complicated last name. On the interior, they actually got some interesting pieces there. Grady Jarrett, of course, he is what he is. I give him an 80 pass rush from the interior. Then you get the veteran Calais Campbell, who I think will probably see some spot duty throughout the year. I think he'll be less and less throughout the year just because, of his age and then wanting to get in other guys. But he's still a quality player, in my opinion. Still has a place getting quality snaps in key situations. So, you can see with the depth here, Ebiketie, Carter Malone, Agundaje, like there's potential, but somebody needs to break out because I don't think Bud Dupree as an edge rusher is somebody that's going to last and should be on the field full time. I think Ebiketie's got the upside. So I think that he should probably end up being the guy by the end of the year, but he's got to improve on last year. Lorenzo Carter's sort of like a hybrid linebacker. So in a 3-4, very good. 4-3, not so much. So how they roll that out will be interesting. D'Angelo Malone, I think, is a decent third defensive end. Like like traditional defensive end. A Gundaje, passing game, yikes. We look at the interior. They have David Onyemata, who I think is a little bit lesser in the passing game than what we'll get out of Calais Campbell, at least early in the year. I think that he could end up getting more snaps just because, they did pay him. Calais Campbell is older. But in terms of overall grade, he is a little bit lesser. Eddie Goldman out there, what's he going to be? Taquan Graham is just not he's more of a early down interior guy. So now we're looking at them against the run, and this is where Ebiketie gets on the field on early downs, which is why he might end up seeing the field a lot more on passing downs as well. Zach Harrison takes a step back in the run game. Grady Jarrett takes a step back in the run game. Taquan Graham really steps up here. This is where he gets on the field. And we look at the depth. Lorenzo Carter, again, he sort of steps up here because he's got that hybrid ability in the run game. You can line him up as an off-ball guy, and he can be still an edge setter. Bud Dupree is better as an early down guy, but he's not nearly as good as the other guys on the team, which is where I think he ends up just being a situational pass rusher at times throughout the year. And then you go to the interior guys. Calais Campbell gets 65. Onyemata. See, David Onyemata got paid. And I know people are going to be, this is something else sort of with the coaches that people are going to be upset, but they're like, he just got paid. He had a great year. It's like, a lot of guys get paid when they have great years in spite of what their overall skill set is. I think that Onyemata in the right situation can be mildly effective. I think Calais Campbell, just in terms of overall skill in both aspects of the game, is still a better player than him. It's just his age is going to affect the durability issue and the long term throughout the season thing. So that's where Onyemata gets paid. He gets brought in. He sort of develops. They develop him further, and he takes that next step up. Like, to me, they paid him on the idea that he's going to come onto this team and he's going to take that next step. I think it's possible. I think he's going to get every opportunity, obviously. I just think early on in the year, he's going to lose a lot of snaps to Calais Campbell on passing downs, and he'll lose snaps to Taquan Graham on early downs. By the end of the year, he'll probably have the second most snaps out of everyone. I think that he'll have the second most snaps out of all the interior guys. I think if you pick up an injury, he's an easy replacement for Grady Jarrett on all three downs. I think that's for sure a thing. So we'll see how it works out. But I think David Onyemata getting paid, I think he's got bust sort of written all over him. So the linebackers on this team is a question mark for this defense. It has become the least important position on a defense, it seems, is the linebacker position. Caden Ellis coming over from New Orleans is really all they got. It's really hard to find somebody else. I think when you go to the depth aspect, I think a guy that has a real chance is Mike Jones Jr., the rookie. Troy Anderson, rookie last year, was absolutely horrific. He was so terrible. Now, I understand that there was a lot of raw ability there, and he needed time to develop. But until he shows he can develop, potential doesn't buy the groceries. I'm sorry. Potential does not buy the groceries. I'm not going to grade him high based upon what his perceived potential might be when he played that terribly. He's got a long way to go. Look, in the run game, Caden Ellis really steps up here. He's going to have to, unfortunately, carry this linebacking group. He is really good against the run. I'll give him that. Really good against the run. He's going to have to really step up in the passing game because he's really all they got. And even the depth here, that Mike Jones, I think this is where he really gets a chance to be on the field early on. And ultimately is what probably makes him the number 2 linebacker on the team long-term by the end of the year. Troy Anderson in the run game, this is where he'll end up on the field is on first down probably. But, I mean, this is a real weak spot on this team, and it really needs some drastic improvement here. It could end up really being the downfall, especially if they can't get good interior defensive line play against the run in particular. Then Caden Ellis is going to really have to put in a lot of work. I think he's a candidate for 160 tackles this year, just because I think he's going to be meeting a lot of running backs in between the tackles 3 or 4 yards down the field this year. Now we go to their pass coverage, and this group has a lot of potential. I think the lack of a pass rush is ultimately what's going to, I think, drag them down. They're going to be left on a lot of islands, have to stay in coverage for a long time, have to communicate really well in zone coverage, because until there is some type of evidence that a pass rush can be established here at any type of consistent top 25 level, these guys are going to be doing a lot of running around. AJ Terrell gets a 77. That's still a good grade for me. Not a lot of guys get into the 80s, even less get into the 90s for me. Jeff Okudah and Clark Phillips, the rookie, sort of get a similar grade here. I think Clark Phillips playing as a nickel guy could be really, really good. I think he was one of the steals of the draft, to be honest. I think his size, unfortunately, is what brought him down. Jesse Bates gets just below a 70 in the pass game. I really like him against the run. We'll get to that. Richie Grant, and then comes in. I think he's a, pretty solid safety in the pass game. You look at some of the depth here. Not a lot of depth in pass coverage from these guys. I think Darren Hall and D. Alford, I think, had pretty decent years last year, but I think a lot of it did come more in the run game. And I don't necessarily think it's their fault. When you don't have a pass rush, like I said, you're going to be stuck having to cover elite level talents for extended periods of time where it's almost impossible for anyone. Unless you're like Jalen Ramsey or, God, who else could I think of off the top of my head that could do it? Jalen Ramsey, Sauce Gardner, Patrick Surtain. Unless you're like one of those three guys, like, it's unreasonable to ask that much of them, and a lot's going to get asked of this defensive back group, which I think ultimately is going to drag them down. But again, it's up to that front four. And now we get into their run support, and this is where Jesse Bates really shines. He's somebody that has enough skill in the passing game that you can put him deep safety, but you can also bring him down. You can have him play a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage to help with that run support, where he's very effective. I think that's where Clark Phillips is really going to struggle, as well as Richie Grant. I think their size is ultimately what brings them down. Jeff Okudah has shown an ability to play in the run game. AJ Terrell has an ability to play in the run game as well. I think Okudah is a better run support defensive back than AJ Terrell is. I think that's undeniable at this point. I think that AJ Terrell, when given the opportunity, though, you're not worried about him as much as you would somebody else. You kind of know that you're going to get some physical play out of him. He's not afraid to do it. Then you look at some of the depth. This is where they got some really good depth players. D. Alford, Darren Hall, Mike Hughes, all very good in the run game. I think they're really effective on special teams because of it. DeMarco Helms, the rookie, I think could sneak himself onto the field in these situations, on early down situations as the season goes on. I think on special teams, he'll be really effective and ultimately help him make the team. Because he's, again, somebody unafraid of physicality. And I think when you have Helms, Hughes, Hall, and Alford, these are like your true depth pieces just because they aren't afraid of the physicality. They're going to go out there on special teams and play, and then hopefully throughout the year can develop their abilities in pass coverage to make them more effective depth pieces to the actual defense. Because in terms of their ability to be physical, go out and tackle, be a sure tackler for guys at their, at the defensive back position, I think very, very strong. So just, again, running through the position summaries here for the defense. The pass game is going. There's not a lot of strong points. A lot of guys are going to have to step up for this to be a really effective defense. There's not a lot of depth, especially for the pass defense. In the rush defense, in the defensive backs, they got some depth, but in that front seven, which is what truly matters really in the run game, they don't have a lot going on there. There's going to have to be somebody that's going to have to step up. Somebody is going to have to break out on that front four in particular, whether it be Arnold Ebiketie, whether it be D'Angelo Malone, whether it be the rookie Zach Harrison, whether it be David Onyemata plays up to that contract like they're hoping that he does. Somebody in that group is going to have to really take a step up and step up big and step up fast to help out the back end. And then I think that'll raise everybody else up. Because ultimately, this is the 28th ranked defense for me in the league, 29th against the pass, 21st against the run. So not a bad, it's a bottom half of the league run defense. But if you get a couple guys to step up, you get a second linebacker, whether it be Mike Jones or Troy Anderson or whoever, can step up and be a solid linebacker out there, then that will raise up them into being a top 20 rush defense. If they can get a decent pass rush going on, I think they can get into the top 20 for pass defense as well. Just because of how much it'll help a lot of the high-level talent they have on the back end, like A.J. Terrell and Jesse Bates, and then the potential of Jeff Okudah. It's just, as of right now, you can't really project that. You have to go based on what you've been shown, and I think bringing in Bud Dupree, of all people, just because his familiarity, I guess, with Arthur Smith being on the Titans or whatever, it's just an odd signing to me, because he doesn't. I'm surprised they didn't just go get Jadeveon Clowney, because you would have gotten more out of it. You would have gotten a higher floor and a higher ceiling. But maybe he didn't want to sign there. Maybe the money was too much. I don't know. But it was it was baffling. A baffling signing. So there's a lot of reliance on the young players to raise up this pass defense, because the back end, the talent's there. They're just being hung up to dry by the lack of production up front. So looking at Atlanta's schedule, and this is what I mean in terms of this team could, with a couple of things going right, end up being the team that wins this division and ultimately makes the playoffs. They do play Houston. They play Tennessee. They play Indianapolis. They got Carolina. They got Arizona. Those are 5 games. Even the one against Chicago. There's 6 games there for me that could possibly be wins, which is wild, because then that would make them a 12-win team. Them splitting with New Orleans is kind of up in the air. Them sweeping Tampa Bay, also kind of up in the air. Them beating Green Bay, we don't really know what Green Bay is going to be. That's kind of up in the air as well. But this team, based upon the schedule, it wouldn't shock me if they were above 500. If they got to 9 wins. I think there are 9 wins to be found here. Just the way it played out for me, it was 6. But I do know that there was a lot of times I was looking at a game with Atlanta and scratching my head as to, is this a win or a loss for them? As you can see, a lot of the times, if it was on the road, I gave it to the home team. But if it was at home, they got the benefit of the doubt. You see against New Orleans, against Tampa Bay, and against Carolina, them going 3-3 in the division. They win the 3 home games, they lose the 3 road games. They beat Green Bay at home, they can beat Washington at home, they beat Tampa Bay on the road. Sorry, they 4 divisional wins. So 4 of their 6 wins are in the division. I wouldn't be shocked if they got 5. But I also wouldn't be shocked if they only got 3. So it's again, Desmond Ridder, Arthur Smith. How are they going to work together to move this team to the next level? So an overall team summary here, they are 6-11, second in the division, a terrible division, a very winnable division. They're 11th in the conference, not that far away from even sneaking in as a playoff team, but 24th in the league. 25th coaching staff, has the potential to be a top 20 coaching staff depending on how they evolve. 23rd total offense with the potential to be a top potentially a top 15 offense, depending on what we get out of the quarterback Desmond Ridder, but ultimately the 24th pass offense as it stands right now. The 28th total defense, 29th against the pass. If they get somebody to step up at the linebacker position or somewhere in that front four, they could bump this rush defense and pass defense. Rush defense can get bopped into the top 20. Pass defense can get pushed probably into the top 25, ultimately pushing the top total defense closer to that top 20 range. But like I've said, potential doesn't buy the groceries. Potential can only get you so far. You need execution, you need growth, you need development. And it's going to be, this is really, I think, the most volatile of all the teams so far in terms of they got a lot of potential. And if they could reach it, they could be really effective. But if they don't reach it, this is about as good as they could possibly be. And there it is. My number 24 team, the Atlanta Falcons. Thanks for making it this far. If you have, hit subscribe. If you made it this far. And I appreciate you guys actually sticking around for the explanations of why I ranked certain players the way that I did. For those of you that didn't, I look forward to in the comment section talking to you guys about, research, because apparently research is something I don't do until I bring the receipts, and then people have nothing to say after that. Again, check that Panthers comment section out. But thanks for coming, and I will see you guys with the next video next time.